shop is open and the earth is full. You're here for episode 6. We reveal the cock slot car we've been modding. My name is Doug, and let's see this project laid out. Not wanting to destroy a good classic body, we found a perfect oversanded body and proceeded to smooth it out. And then we started adding some details. On today's episode, tip 1. We're going to use silly putty as a mask. Then we'll turn jars of paint into rattle cans. Then we'll have a cool tip on how to make sure the nooks and crannies get filled when using an airbrush. Then we'll talk about best practices when you cut out and use water slide decals. The biggest challenge in this build was making a driver fit where a Sidewinder motor wanted to be. That included taking a driver, cutting into segments, and then using their placement to really make a custom installation. So what's the deal about silly putty? Well, this incredible material was designed by accident. If you have a problem masking in real small areas, silly putty is a terrific material. Look, you just stick it into place like on the face and the helmet and you get perfect masking. And you can either mix it back into your roll or throw it away when you're done. I saw a cool little technique my son Landon was using. I thought I'd share it with you. Mixing up paint can be a real trick. Sometimes you got to use a brush, sometimes a little stick. Well, what about using some BBs? When you get a new jar of paint, just drop 2 or 3 pieces of shot into the jar. Make sure the cap is on firmly, then place your tray table in the upright and locked position, fasten your seatbelt securely, and shake away. I learned how to airbrush with a variety of very inexpensive airbrushes purchased on eBay. But I tell you what, the best budget one I have found is this Iwata Nia. It's a much less expensive unit than a full-price Iwata, but it does an excellent job. Here's a great little tip that I learned from people who spray show cars. They start with the very small details, and just with little puffs of the sprayer, they spray into these tiny little nooks and crannies, because if you wait till later on, you can get runs in the paint from trying to make sure the paint gets in those places. Do it first, and then you can do the wide swaths later on. The cobalt blue paint is now on. Still has a bit of an eggshell appearance to it. That's okay. We'll spray some future floor finish to make it really glossy. You can see we've removed the silly putty and the masking from the driver. After the paint is dried, I'm taking some time to do a little bit of fix-up. Places where the paint came up underneath the masking, which happens sometimes. You'll see I'm applying the paint to the face and also the goggles area. In the areas where it's kind of difficult to mask, sometimes I will just go right over onto the other paint area, and then I just volley between the two colors to finally get the lines exactly where they should be. Now, just before the decals, you'll see I've sprayed on some future floor polish. Here goes one more of these coats. They really help the decals to stick well. To make the decals better adhere to really curvy surfaces, we'll pull out some Cro-Sal. I was a little bit concerned when I started this build because I hadn't located these decals. It's very easy to make decals in a color other than white because you can print them. But white decals, they require an entirely different kind of printing system. And here comes tip number 4. How can you perform daring decals? First thing, you have to determine whether they were made on a home printer or on a professional decal making system. If they're from a home printer, you'll need to cut them out first. If they are professionally made, really soak them until they start coming right off of the sheet like this. Now I usually place one side and then just pull. If you keep some water droplets on the surface, it's a little bit easier to move this decal around with your thumb. If you've never used Cro-Sal, your world is about to get a lot better. This is a great liquid that actually softens the decals, allowing them to conform around surfaces. When you first use Cro-Sal, you'll notice that it starts to wrinkle, and you're going to worry that you made a mistake. Just wait, it will smooth out to a beautiful surface. Well, let's take a look at the little presentation box that this little slot car will live in. Keep the dust off. As you see, it does tend to gather dust, being a really dark cobalt blue car. Underneath, you can see it's all finely restored. When you find these older Cox slot cars, a lot of times they're missing the windshields or the windshields are broken. So what do? Well, this is a third-party windshield. I'm going to trim this down so it looks perfect as the Cro Sal Roadster windshield. Well, thanks for adventuring with us in this cheetah safari. And now, the final reveal. For crazy cool stuff, visit us at fullearthworkshop.com.